Welcome back to r/entitled_parents. In this video, OP's family demands that he gives them his new house. And the Reddit title story starts like this. Buying my dream house was the proudest moment of my life. It was not some fancy mansion or sprawling estate, but it was mine. Every square foot paid for with my own hard work. I'd been saving for years, working long hours and putting every extra dollar towards the goal. I wanted stability, something I'd never had growing up. See, my parents were never the type to support me. If anything, they saw me as their personal safety net from the time I was old enough to hold a job. While other kids got help with sports, clubs or even just rides home, I was expected to figure it out all alone. By the time I was in high school, they'd already borrowed from me, money from part-time jobs I should have been saving for myself. They always had excuses like, "Family helps family," or "We will pay you back when things get better." But better never came. Even with all that, I never wanted to be cruel. I'm the type who believes that if you can help someone, you should, and even if they don't always deserve it. It's who I am. But I also learned to keep firm boundaries because every time I let my parents in too much, they took advantage. So when I finally got the keys to my house, I thought maybe, just maybe, they would be happy for me. I wanted to share the moment with them, not realizing that inviting them in would blow everything up. The day of the housewarming party felt like a fresh start. I'd invited a handful of close friends, some co-workers, and yes, my parents. Against my better judgment, I wanted them there. A part of me still hoped for that picture-perfect moment where they would say, "We are proud of you." At first, things went smoothly. My friends showed up with little gifts, a plant here, a bottle of wine there. Everyone was smiling, laughing and complimenting the place, and it felt good to show off what I had built. But then my parents arrived and the entire mood shifted. My mom walked in, immediately running her hand along the walls as though she was inspecting her new property. "Wow," she said, "this place is perfect, just the right size for us." I laughed it off thinking she was joking, but then my dad chimed in and said, "Yeah, about time we lived somewhere nice. Much better than that dump we are stuck in. Thanks, son, for buying us a house." The people around us chuckled awkwardly, but I froze. They were not joking. Throughout the evening, they made more comments like that, talking about their new bedroom, deciding which wall they might knock down to open the kitchen, and then even asking one of my friends if she thought the place had good resale value. Everyone else was uncomfortable, but I plastered on a smile and tried to ignore it. Deep down though, my gut told me that this was going somewhere bad. They were not just visiting, they were staking a claim. By the time dessert was served, the tension had shifted from subtle unease to outright confrontation. My parents cornered me near the kitchen, away from the guests, their smiles gone and replaced by that familiar sense of entitlement I'd learned to recognize over the years. "You know," my dad started, leaning casually against the counter, "we've been thinking, this house is amazing, you did so well. You know, family helps family, right?" I blinked. I wanted to laugh, maybe even make a joke to diffuse it, but there was no mistaking the seriousness in his tone. My mom jumped in, echoing him. "Absolutely, we raised you, we gave you life, and surely giving us the house is the least you can do." My heart sank. I had imagined so many ways a housewarming could go, good food, laughter, maybe even a small toast to my independence, but never this. They were not interested in celebration, they were here to stake a claim on my life, my home and my hard work. "Let me be very clear," I said, keeping my voice steady even though my hands were shaking. "This house is mine. I worked for it, I bought it with my own money, and there's no way in hell I'm giving it to you." Their faces darkened instantly, a storm brewing behind eyes that had never seen boundaries before. My mom's hand shot to her hip. "You cannot say no to family. This is our house as much as it is yours." I took a deep breath. "No, this ends here. I won't give you the house and I won't negotiate. You are my parents, yes, but that doesn't mean that you own me or what I've earned." They stared at me, momentarily stunned. And by the way, guys, let me know in the comments, if your family confronted you like this, what would you have done in that moment? To be honest, I might have called the police or something, but thankfully I don't have parents like this, so it's really hard to imagine how someone would react to a situation like this. Either way, let me know what you think in the comments, and while you're at it, please don't forget to like the video, because that helps me tremendously in regards to fighting back against the damn YouTube algorithm, which is worse than any entitled parents you could ever imagine. Anyway, the fire in their eyes told me it was not over, it was far from it. The moment I firmly said no, the atmosphere changed. Their smiles disappeared, replaced with sharp, almost desperate expressions. My parents started moving around the house, touching things in ways that made it clear they felt entitled to them. My mom began tearing down the curtains, pulling at the fabric until it ripped. My dad slammed doors and tossed fragile items onto the floor. I couldn't believe this was happening in my own home. Everything I'd worked for, the hours of overtime, the budgeting, the sacrifices, was being treated like it didn't even matter. The housewarming I had planned as a joyful celebration was turning into a nightmare. Guests froze, unsure whether to intervene or to step back. Some quietly recorded the chaos, and others helped corral my younger cousin who was terrified by the commotion. I realized that arguing would only escalate things further. Their anger was not about reason, it was about control, entitlement, and their own insecurities projected onto me. This was my house, my space, my life. Even as they continued to vandalize, knocking over a bookshelf, scratching the hardwood floors and shoving decorative items across the room, I stayed calm. I noted everything, the damage, the chaos, the sheer intensity of the outrage. This would all be important later. In that moment, I finally understood that nothing I could say or do would satisfy them. The only thing I could control was my response. I had to protect my home, my boundaries, and myself, and that meant calling the authorities before the situation spiraled any further, so I did not waste a second. My hand shook slightly as I dialed 911, but my voice was steady as I explained what was happening. The dispatcher assured me help was on the way, and I turned my attention back to my parents. They were still raging, tearing down pictures and tossing knickknacks, but I didn't engage. Every second I spent arguing would have only made things worse. By the time the police arrived, my parents were pacing, yelling and glaring at me like I'd betrayed them. I stepped aside and let the officers handle it. They surveyed the damage, spoke with me calmly, and then addressed my parents directly. The officers explained that they were officially trespassed from the property and that returning would result in immediate arrest. My parents tried to argue, tried to guilt me, but the law was clear. There was no room for their entitlement, no loophole for their manipulation. I showed the officers the damage, the ripped curtains, the scratched floors, toppled furniture and broken items, and every act of destruction was recorded in their report. I felt a strange sense of relief knowing that this documentation would actually protect me if they tried anything later. It was not about revenge, it was about setting boundaries and asserting that my home, my life and my property were mine alone. After the police left, I locked the doors and walked through the house, assessing the damage. The physical destruction was upsetting but not devastating. Friends who had attended the party helped me clean up, move broken items, and even offered to help replace some of the damaged decorations. Their support reminded me that family is not always the people who you share your blood with, it's the people who show up when you need them. For the first time that night, I felt a quiet sense of triumph. I had not let their entitlement win, I hadn't let them take what I earned. I was finally in control and finally free to enjoy my home without fear or manipulation. The next morning the house was quiet in a way that felt almost sacred. The chaos of the previous night had passed, leaving behind only minor traces of their anger and a newfound sense of control for me. I walked through the rooms, picking up broken pieces and straightening what I could. Each item I set back in place was like reclaiming a piece of my life and a reminder that this space belonged to me and me alone. I called a few friends who had helped the night before to thank them and let them know that I was okay. Their support didn't just fix the mess, it reminded me that I had built a network of people who genuinely cared about me. Unlike my parents, they were not there for what they could get, they were there because they valued me as a person. That realization settled over me like a weight being lifted. For weeks after, I didn't hear from my parents and I didn't respond to messages or calls. I had no desire to explain myself, no need to justify why I refused to hand over the house I'd worked for. They had made their choices, and I made mine. Going no contact was harder emotionally than I expected at first, but it quickly became the healthiest choice I could have made. I felt free for the first time in years, and I also made a few practical changes. I installed extra security, filed insurance claims for the damage, and documented everything thoroughly. Steps I knew would protect me in the unlikely event they tried to come back, but emotionally the biggest change was internal. I finally recognized that being kind and generous didn't mean letting people take advantage of me. I could help, but on my terms, not theirs. Sitting on my porch that evening, looking out at the house I'd earned, I realized something important. The physical damage was temporary, but the peace I'd created for myself was permanent. I'd learned to stand up for myself, to trust my judgment, and to protect my life from toxic influence. For the first time, I truly felt like I'd come out on top, not just owning my dream home, but owning my own story. In the end, the house was not just a place to live, it was proof of what I had built with my own effort, and my parents' demands and outbursts had no power over me anymore. Edit, for those people in the comments who were asking, I forgot to mention that yes, I did press charges and my parents ended up having to pay me for the furniture and other things they destroyed, but obviously they did not go to prison or something, even though I would have liked that. And the next one is a super crazy entitled parent story from r/bestof, and it is titled, I told my wife I'm not going on family holiday with her family. So usually I always put my wife and her family first. I moved to my wife's hometown because she wanted to be closer to hers. Now, her family and mine are total opposites. I'm an only child and she's the eldest of 3. My extended family is 4 people, including me, and hers is 30 plus. My family are introverted and don't drink. Hers are super extroverts and booze whenever they can. My parents are disabled and hers are healthy. Honestly, my family are boring and hers are fun, and I've gotten used to it, and it's horrible to say, but because of being around them so much, I prefer hanging out with her family than my own. I always do what she wants, I'm a pushover, but happy wife is happy life, right? Even if it's something I don't want to do, I do it to make her happy. First dance at our wedding, terrified and I didn't want to do one, I don't like being the center of attention, she cried and I caved in. Christmas? Her family is large, so have a big fun party on Christmas Day. Mine is small and boring, so she doesn't want to be there. Where to live? Well, she wanted to be close to her family, so now mine's a 3-hour drive away, and I hardly see them except for birthdays. Well, this year, it is her grandma's 70th, and her mom's 50th and my 30th, so her family have planned a huge family holiday of 25 plus people to be away for 3 weeks to celebrate everyone's birthdays. The catch is, it's not on anyone's birthday except mine. We would fly home one day after my birthday. Obviously, my parents want to see me on my 30th and have said they are upset because, as usual, I'm pandering to her family as always and they are being left out again. And yeah, I want to spend time with my family, especially as I only really see them on my birthdays and I'm used to their boringness, but to do that apparently I am ruining her family trip. However, if I go on the trip, I'm putting my family second again and further damaging that relationship. My parents are older and disabled and my gran has early onset dementia, so they don't have much time in comparison to hers. We cannot get a shorter holiday, we cannot go at another time of the year because of work and school commitments, so I told her no. For the first time ever, I told her, no, I'm not going, you can, but I'm staying here. I'm an adult and I want to spend my birthday with my family. To which she replied, I'm your family, and then stormed off, and well, she's not taking it well. She's acting like a spoiled child, crying and screaming, calling her mom to say she cannot go now because I'm not going, so now her family think I'm a massive dick and none of them can see that I have another side to my family. She has packed a bag since I started writing this and she says she's going to stay at her mom's place until I can make up my mind what's more important, my family or hers. And by the way guys, that is an insanely immature thing to say, and to put OP in a position like that is just absolutely despicable if you ask me. OP is definitely not the a-hole here and I feel so bad for OP. Let me know what you think in the comments. And after that, we are now reading the update to the story and it goes like this. So, I only wanted a place to vent, didn't expect such a response. Just to clear some things up, I love my wife and I'm not gonna divorce her over this. She does so much for me and is normally a kind and loving person. We've been together 6 years and married for 18 months. We don't have kids, but we are trying. We live in the UK and the reason why we cannot go at any other time is because of the UK laws on taking children out of school during term time for holidays, so it's been planned during the autumn break so the parents don't get fined. Well, I woke up this morning to the following text from her mom. Do you know how disappointed I am in you right now? It's not even that you're not coming away for my birthday. It's the fact that you're not supporting my daughter. You know how important family is to her. You know how much she wants to come and you telling her to go on her own is not being supportive. You've put a full stop to it all. I don't get what your issue is. It's one thing and then another, and she cannot do right for wrong in trying. It is supposed to be a lovely family holiday for my 50th. Also imagine some annoying emojis I cannot really audio visualize for you. It's made me even more determined to stand my ground, and I think I'm gonna take the advice of a commenter and send her mom my reasoning. They seem to forget that I have parents too, I just don't want to be hated. This holiday is 8 months away and I don't want 8 months of hate, especially when we live in such close proximity. Now we got another update to the story, and it goes like this. So last night my wife and I went out for dinner, and my idea so we could speak and I hope being in a public place would make her less likely to scream and cry. I told her all the advice that I'd read on here and showed her the texts I received from her mom. She listened to everything I had to say, and I could see her physically cringe when she read the text. She apologized for the way she acted and said she hadn't even considered it from my POV. I told her what one Redditor had said, sorry so many comments, I cannot remember a name, if we are doing this for 30, 50, 70, what's gonna happen at 40, 60, 80 or 50, 70, 90? Are we gonna have this spoiled child situation when she's nearly 40, or are we gonna leave it behind now in her 20s? When she told me her family had all got together to book the trip the night she left, and she felt bad because I said we were not going, so now no one had booked until I'd finished throwing my toys out the pram. I told her I didn't say we cannot go, I just said I was not going, but she could. By the way, I ignored the toys and pram comment as that pissed me off. I reminded her that her mom's actual birthday was 2 weeks before we fly, and her nan's birthday is in 2 weeks from now. She will get to spend time with them, have a party, etc. on the actual day, and that's something I want for myself too. I don't want to be away from my family in a different country with 25 plus people I don't know that well on my 30th. I want to do something with my family over my birthday before it is too late. My mom's health is rapidly deteriorating and she cannot do much as it is, and who knows how long my gran has before this dementia really sets in. My mom always talked about doing a Baltic cruise and see the Northern Lights for my gran's 80th, but that is still 2 years away, and I honestly don't think in 2 years either of them will be in any fit state, so I suggested we do it for my 30th instead. My wife seemed keen and pulled up some dates. There's one that leaves 3 days before my birthday and comes back 3 days after, which is perfect timing. We called my mom to ask and she sounded delighted. She herself had not even considered how my gran would be at 80 and thought it would be a lovely trip to make memories on. We then went to her mom's house. No apology or anything from her, but you cannot win everything. To tell her together that we were not going for the 3 weeks, but we had found, my wife had found, a 1-week booking that coincided with their 3-week trip in a hotel that was just down the beach, the same chain/resort, but just a different building. Enough distance to have our own break, but still include the family for evening meals and so on. No one had even suggested looking at shortened dates, and I hadn't even considered it until I read so many comments saying, just come back sooner. All in all, I'm gonna take this as a win. I don't think my bank balance will though. Anyway though, she has seen me put my foot down and mean it. I'm not gonna let her have her way all the time at my own detriment anymore. I have not caved in for an easier life, and together we found a peaceful solution. My family have not been excluded and are so excited. My mom's like a kid at Christmas and hers are, well, happy they can book now, and at least the a-hole SIL is only there for a week. Hopefully, as it's not for 8 months, they might forget. Screw the happy wife, happy life mentality. I've never heard happy spouse, happy house before, but I think I'll be using that mantra from now on. And by the way guys, I really like that mantra. Let me know if you would agree with that one or not. Anyway, like you all said, it's a two-way street, give and take, compromise. Thanks to everyone for your advice and support. And now let's move on to the next story. It starts like this. I will start this off by saying that I am most certainly grateful that I'm in a position where I've been able to fully pay off my mortgage, especially in the current housing market. I am 35 and live with my wife in a fairly nice area where, as I've mentioned, we have been able to pay off our mortgage in full. Due to us both receiving decent promotions a few years ago, we even managed to pay it off a few years in advance of the planned end date, something we are very proud about. It took us 15 years to pay off the mortgage, and in the first years we did have some help from family, but now we can relax. However, during these 15 years, unbeknownst to us, our property fell under an HOA area nearby. By nearby, I mean there are around 5 streets in this HOA, all of which are one bend around the corner from our house. So if you looked on a map, there are 5 streets neatly lined up, and it's very obvious that they are all in an HOA. You would not think one random house around the corner is also part of it, would you? Well, for the entirety of these 15 years, we did not hear anything from them. No letters that we hadn't paid our HOA fees, neither anyone coming wrong angry that our house didn't fit with their aesthetic or guidelines, probably because nobody on those 5 streets had a clue either. One afternoon though, I received a call on the landline, strange as nobody really uses that anymore, and the man answered and asked, "Hello? Is this OP residence?" "Yes it is, how can I help you?" I asked, assuming this was a cold call. And by the way, Ripe Stars, I hate those. Also, how many of you still have a landline? I'm curious, let me know in the comments. Here in Thailand, it's apparently not a thing anymore. I don't know a single person here that has that. Although in Europe, I think it's still pretty common. "Oh well, I've bought this house and when I drove by earlier, it looks like you're still occupying it. I was told you would have moved out 2 weeks ago." I was silent for a moment. What on earth are you on about? We own this house in its entirety and just paid off the mortgage. I hung up after that, thinking it must have been a prank call, but after worrying for most of the day, I decided to go down to the county courthouse and investigate. They pulled up the records of my address, and to my horror, it turned out the man was right. He had bought the house. He also informed me that it was sold for $200,000, which is significantly lower than the property's worth. "From who?" I asked, flabbergasted. "Well, it says here that your property was foreclosed on due to unpaid HOA fees." Sorry? I'm not even in an HOA area. That's just what it says here. I think it would be wise to contact whatever HOA this is. I will write down their contacts. I was furious, but at the same time sure that it was just some sort of mistake, maybe some sort of automated process and nobody had checked what was going on. Or maybe they had done this to the wrong house by accident. So then I drove over to the HOA office and walked in to explain the situation, handing over the documents that the courthouse had copied for me. "Oh yes, this house was foreclosed the other week," the woman behind the desk answered, pushing the papers back towards me with her long nails before turning back to her work. "Why?" I demanded. She sighed and turned back. "Because you haven't been paying your HOA fees for the past 15 years. "I'm not part of the HOA. The woman laughed slightly. "I think you will find out you are. Were the hundreds of letters informing you of your fees not enough proof?" "I haven't gotten any letters." "Yeah, sure you haven't, and you weren't able to hear any of the voicemails either?" she asked with a roll of her eyes. "There have been no calls or no mail. I really think this is all just some big mistake." "Nope, no mistake. You should have moved out weeks ago. We will get the police involved if you're not out by tomorrow." "This is not ending here," I replied and walked out. I went to bed that night absolutely furious. I told my wife everything and she had a similar stance on the situation. We decided that the next day we would seek out a lawyer and get their opinion on the matter. So the following day we both called off work and headed to a law firm and ended up sitting across from someone who specializes in HOA disputes. The lawyer did some digging online and found that this HOA had some significant flaws. Everything just seems done wrong. There's hundreds of complaints on here about data breaches and all sorts of stuff. The lawyer drawled as he kept digging, and when I look up the online deeds and foreclosures for your house, there doesn't seem to be nearly any proof that significant notifications were given. "That's good, right?" my wife asked. "For your case, yes. If all goes well, this should be a fairly easy case to win. It'll just be tedious and stressful in the meantime. I will contact the buyer's attorney to let them know what is happening, and then they should be awaiting a court verdict before the man can move in." While at the office, we filed a lawsuit against the HOA and had it sent out challenging the foreclosure and selling of our home. We also ended up ranting about the situation online. I know, maybe not the best decision, but we figured, why not? Sometimes ranting is the best therapy, and in this case it was, as the traction our story gained was insane. Some people were talking about similar stories. It seems most HOAs are rather disliked, others offering support and encouragement. All in all, most people were astonished at the more than questionable ongoings of this HOA and wondering in what world they thought they could do this. A day later we answered the door to another person representing the HOA. She had a lanyard on indicating as much. "Hello?" I asked. Hello. We have recently been made aware that the situation with your home has become rather public. It is upsetting members of the HOA and we wish for you to remove it." "So you wrongfully foreclosed my house and you are mad at me for posting about it?" "Well, not exactly. We just think we should handle things privately, okay?" "We will be handling things when we see you in court." I made a move to shut the door, but they put their foot in the way. Well, we do believe we could solve this on a more low-key level. The court hearing will be broadcast and filmed, of course, and instead we could just sit down like adults and speak about this. When would you like to come back down to the office?" "Why haven't you ever bothered to come over and speak to us before?" I asked, kicking her foot out of the door and slamming it. "See you in court." A few weeks later, the court hearing was taking place. The man who had bought the house was there and was apologizing for all of the chaos, as he had no idea any of this had taken place and thought that he had simply gotten a great deal on the house. We of course didn't blame him at all. "Now you claim that the HOA has sent hundreds if not thousands of notices over the past 15 years to the residents, informing them of their outstanding fees," the judge asked the HOA representative, the same woman who had been at the desk when we went over. "Yes, that is correct. The fee total was $200K, so after the endless notifications we were forced to sell the house for that amount." Putting aside the fact that that is an obscene amount of money to owe an HOA, you must be aware that they own that house, right? Where are your statements that you have the right to sell it? Well, we took their silence as answer enough, that they understood the consequences and we had explained it in each and every letter what would happen. Well, there's no evidence of any letters being sent nor calls, the judge stated. Seems like I did not even need a lawyer for this. Well, I'm certain they have been sent. The judge took a moment to scan through all the documents. Well, without sufficient evidence to support your claims, I'm going to have to rule in favor of the plaintiff in this instance. Also, the HOA will be charged a sum of $300,000 for the emotional distress and financial hardship of the couple having to hold back from work temporarily. There was some slight back and forth after that between the HOA representative, who obviously paled at the amount. Me and my wife were ecstatic. All we wanted was the house, but that was even better. And of course, the judge ordered for the property to be wholly returned to our names and for the sale to be reversed. The man figured that would be the outcome, and the three of us decided to go out for drinks after that, on us of course. And the next one is a beautiful petty revenge story. This one is titled, I faked proof that I had a flat tire so that the lazy people in my group project would have to do the presentation themselves and therefore likely will fail. For context, I'm in a class where a group research project/presentation is a huge chunk of overall points. Everyone knows in group projects you always have that one slacker who doesn't do anything that you have to compensate for. However, I got stuck with possibly the worst 3 people to be in a project with in the class. I did the entire research, presentation, poster boards, etc., among many other things myself. I tried talking to them, telling them they needed to put in their share of effort, but I got ignored. I would send them tasks to do, ignore too, and I would try to schedule meetings and they would say they were coming and then leave me alone at the library. This happened from the get-go. It was abundantly clear that they expected everyone else to do the work, but everyone else turned out to be just me. The rule: we couldn't have things 100% memorized word for word and we could not read off of anything. We had to actually know the subject. I was fully prepared to do most of the talking and even wrote down a small script for them and told them to know what to say during their part at the very least. The night before I told them we had to meet to at least go over the whole thing one time, but once again none of them showed up. At this point I am livid and decide they can just do it themselves, which means they would get up there, not know a damn thing to say other than the small info I gave, and could not even BS anything because they did no research. The thing is, if we miss without an excuse, we fail the project. If you have an excuse, you have to have documentation. I commute and live an hour away, so I decided I will conveniently have a flat tire right before class. I went out and actually bought a tire so I could have the receipt to prove it, emailed the professor who said I can present by myself during his office hours, and it turns out they completely bombed. And not only probably failed the project, but since they are bad students, might even make them fail the entire class. And yeah guys, thank you for watching. Please don't forget to subscribe and I will see you again tomorrow.